Let me go ahead and just kind of jump in today. It's a bit of a gross story, so I apologize now, but I like it. A couple of years ago, I had several planter's warts on the bottom of my foot. I'm going there. I just thought this would be a great way to intro this talk. I had these planter's warts. Have you ever had planter's warts? They kind of like grow up, but they kind of like grow into your foot, and it's very uncomfortable. And I was playing soccer at the time, so I wasn't able to really pivot on my left foot, and I'm right-footed, so it was just getting in the way, and so it was very annoying. So I got all the over-the-counter kind of like planter's warts things and stuck it to the bottom of my foot and kind of dug around a little bit. You know what I'm talking about? It's like you kind of got to dig in there and try to get it out. Yeah, she's nodding her head. She knows what I'm saying. It's kind of gross. And I remember doing this, and I got rid of all of them except one. And one just like, it just would not go away. It was like forever a part of my foot. And I just got focused, man. I was like, one day I was like, I'm getting rid of this. I was like, how do you get rid of these things? And if you go and like go to the doctor, they do surgery. They like will actually cut into your foot. I said, well, I don't have any money for a doctor, but I have a drill. And so I put a piece of ice on my foot. I took a flame and put it on the bit of my drill, and I sat there in my living room, and my kids, my wife was like, don't do it, what are you doing? You're great, you're an insane man. And my kids started crying because my wife is freaking, my kids were like, Daddy's gonna die, you know? And I started drilling my foot, and it was painful. It was definitely painful. I just drilled into my foot right on that plantar wart. I said, dig it out, put some alcohol on it, you know. I was on a mission to get rid of this plantar's wart. And you'll be glad to know it has never returned. Totally gone. Guys, but things don't get in my way. When I'm on a mission, things don't get in my way. Like, pain, suffering, right? Some kind of cost. The pleas of my wife, the tears of my children do not get in my way. Like, I'm just like focused. You guys know you probably know a few people who are just like laser beamed focused. Man, I'm on target, and I'm going, I'm scheming, I'm planning, I'm cajoling. And I think for the most part, I think it serves this community. I think it serves the mission of God in the world. It would take something very significant for me to cause a delay when I'm focused on mission. But I think what we see here with Paul is focused on mission. He is going to Spain. And then he takes a detour from his mission because of generosity. He uses the language, previous passages, and this passage of ambition, longing, desire. Paul wants to go to Spain. He is called to go to Spain. The gospel needs to go to Spain, but he's delayed. What's so significant that an entire region of the world can wait for the gospel? Think about that. A section of the world waits for the gospel. For what? For what reason delays the mission of Paul? It's generosity. So we have to get this as missiologists, as missionaries. Mission is so important to the underground. Like mission going, Brian talked about it last week, like, man, we are sent ones. We have an ambition to make disciples and reach the nations and produce micro-churches at every corner of this city. We want this. We are longing for it. We're working at it. It is our mission. It's our desire. It's our longing. We want to see the rule and reign of Jesus expanded all over the city. And yet generosity should delay it. Paul is delayed from his ambition, his calling, his dream, his desire, because he's going to give some money. And then he goes and he asks the Romans for more. He stops by the Romans on his way to Spain to ask for more money. Generosity is bigger than our plans. The giving of money to God's broader work, it might actually be more important than our individual calling. Even if you're Paul. Even if you're Paul. And I wonder if, as we kind of get into this passage, do we have room in our lives for divine detours? Do we have places where the demands of the poor interrupt our plans? Are we kept from accomplishing what we think God wants us to do because of generosity? Not because of foolishness or fear, but because we give. Paul's invited the Romans into the story of Israel through justification by faith. He invites them into the heritage of being adopted as children of God for the purpose of being instruments of righteousness. All of this has happened throughout the book of Romans, and now he invites them into generosity. Paul is talking about money in this passage. He's talking about money. So just so you know, this isn't going to shape up into be some kind of prosperity message. So everybody just like sigh of relief. I know you already know I'm not going to go there. But I do want to kind of stand up as like someone who like preaches and teaches and like minister kind of stuff. I want to apologize for all the con artists who have used the gospel to exploit people for money. It's wrong. I don't think it has anything to do with this passage. But we do, as missionaries, we do have to biblically search and seek out what are we called to do with generosity? What does that mean for us as missionaries? I mean, we are an underground movement. We want to see leaders produced and missionaries sent. We want to be little apostolic people, like little Pauls running around the Bay Area planting microchurches, just like Paul went around the Mediterranean area planting churches. We want to see that. But what does it mean with this passage? Paul's taking the detour to Jerusalem. So let's put some details on it, okay? Paul isn't giving to everyone and everything. Paul's not saying, oh man, I'd love to go to Spain, but you know, I got that car payment. I got this house I got to take care of. He isn't spending all his money on cars and boats and houses. He's not setting up retirement accounts. Paul models for us generosity in two ways that I see in this passage. I think we should give to those we owe. And we do owe people. We should give to those we owe. Paul gives to the poor believers in Jerusalem. The only reason the Gentiles know about Jesus is because they were invited into the story by Jewish believers. And they were grafted into Israel. And just like I commented with Julie, I think all of us owe somebody our spiritual lives. We know Jesus because someone was faithful to share Jesus. And for some of us, that was like very recent. It's very like you could point to, maybe they're sitting next to you like, no, man, it's like it's you. Like I know Jesus because of you. I owe you my life. I owe you everything. And for some of us, it's a little ambiguous. Like we're here today because someone was faithful to share Jesus 400 years ago. We don't know their name, but we owe them. We owe them our spiritual lives. And so we get that sense of that, like owing somebody spiritually. But for those of us who are rich, I think we also owe the poor. We owe them. We owe them our sanity. Because without them, we would just think it's all Disney World. Without them, we wouldn't know the depths of God's love or affection, His power or justice. I mean, just read the Minor Prophets. If you want to, like, just kind of a snapshot of God's love and justice and mercy and compassion, read the Minor Prophets and see what He says on the behalf of the poor in the margins. That revelation comes to us who are rich. Guys, just so you know, I just want to clarify. If you're in this room, I don't care what your bank account says, you're rich. You're living in the United States of America. You're rich. If you have a college education in the United States, you're top 1% of the world. That's elite, whether you like it or not. The poor help us understand human dignity, that it doesn't come with property or education or careers. It's something that's given to us by God. It's not something that it comes from because we could trade it or because we have a bank account or because of what we own or possess. We owe the poor for helping us see Jesus in ways that we literally cannot see Jesus without them. This is Matthew 25. He says, man, what you did for the least of these, you did for me. When you fed them, when you clothed them, when you took care of the sick, visited those in prison, you did that for me. When you see them, you see me. I remember going to Chile years back when we were thinking about starting the underground. We were exploring like different locations to learn from and submit to and just kind of get outside the white Western context and learn how to be the church with the poor and the lost. And we went to Santiago, Chile, and Brian and Monica were there, and Jessica and myself. And I remember Brian we're sitting in the hotel room. He says, man, what are you kind of hoping for this trip? Of course, we were hoping for like discernment on where we should plant, but I remember distinctly saying, dude, I'm looking for the face of Jesus because it's been a while. I need to see his face in those kids' face. I need to see him among the poor. And there's no place I could go and see him the way I see him in these places, in these slum communities. I need to see his face again. It's a gift that the poor give us who are rich, and we owe them for it. It's spiritual, guys, but I think it's also material that we owe the poor. Kevin Bales has this new book out. He's a Quaker academic. Gotta love the Quakers. And he lives in England, but he's a practitioner, man, and he goes all over the world, and he infiltrates basically slave camps. All the modern slavery globally. He investigates it, he researches it, he invades those places, it infiltrates them, and it goes into the earth where 20,000 people live under this mountain, digging out granite. And he researches it, and he has a new book out called Blood and Earth. And he talks about the mine shafts in Congo. And I just want to share with you some of his story from that. He says the mine shafts are deep. They're measured in telephone poles, 6 to 8 telephone poles deep, which is the height of a 10-story building. They're all hand dug. They're chiseled by hand. The rock where gold is found is as hard as steel. And the slaves pound, chip by chip, they follow the gold. No helmets, no gloves, rarely any shoes, just hard bodies, hard work, tools, and jagged rock. 12-hour days are minimum. Rubble's brought from the poundings into a pounding site, where then it's pounded into fine dust, this gray dust, and it's measured out in hard hats. The hard hats that could save lives in the pits are used to measure out the dust, the gold dust. The gray powder is deadly. There's no quicker way to die in the mine than to pound the rubble into dust. The diggers, they're already dead. Their lungs are filling with quartz dust, and it's shredding them to pieces. And they will die within 1.5 to 2 years with fluid in their lungs and gold. It's filling, they'll drown on dry land. The youngest who died in the past year was 18 years old. His lungs full of gold dust. Then the powder goes to the washing tables. It's mixed with water, and the sludge, black sludge, is kind of collected. The black sludge is taken almost reverently, and because this is where the gold appears. They take the black sludge and they pour mercury into it, and they begin mixing it by hand. Mercury, which will kill you. They mix it by hand. And when mercury and gold bond, it forms a gray, waxy pebble. And they start working through the black sludge to get the gold with the mercury. And after they've done that a few times, they take that little waxy nodule and they take it to the furnace. And the guy at the furnace, he takes it and he pours a little acid on it. And everybody jumps back because the cloud of dust or cloud of gas that comes up is instantly deadly. If you breathe it, you'll die in 2 days. The mercury's gone, but it's not destroyed. It goes into the environment, goes into the water system. Half a mile down the river that's now contaminated with mercury, there's a small village where children play in the water, they irrigate their crops, and a small church baptizes their new believers, all contaminated with mercury. The days of chiseling, the tons of ore hauled, dozens of people pounding it into powder, washing and blending it with mercury have produced gold the size of a Hershey Kiss, which ultimately leads to the rings on your finger. If only your ring was as pure as the promises we make with them. In his book, he visits not just rings. He shows how slavery is connected to our food and our technology Guys, and I'm telling you, we should give radically and sacrificially to those who have shared their lives with us. They have given their bodies for our gold and for our technology and our food. And Kevin Bale says, if others paid for our favorite tools and toys with their bodies and minds, we owe them relief, care, and restitution. We owe them to be generous, even if it delays our own lives, even if it puts our plans on detour. We should give to those we owe. And we owe the poor. Paul also models for us that we should give to those who go. Paul's on his way to Spain. He's going there and he invites the Romans to give into that mission, to give to the mission of Spain. And I think this makes sense for most of us. This is kind of very underground. If you're here, a part of the underground, then you're kind of like, yeah, that's part of our flow. Makes sense to us. We understand that as missionaries, we're not called to have better houses or cars or vacations. We're called to give to the advancement of the kingdom borders. And I think as the underground, we follow this model. Our budget is constructed to give to those we owe and to those who go. We give to the poor and to missional work as an organization, as a community. And that's about it. We don't buy flooring. We scour Craigslist to buy chairs that are like $4 instead of spending $50 to $75 per chair. We build our own stuff. I'm on the roof with Matt trying to fix roof leaks. We give our money away. The staff agree to take very low salaries, if you didn't already know, so that money can be released to the poor and to missions around the world, both here locally and globally. The staff, we raise our own money. Most of it. We raise our own. When Brian goes on trips around the world, he goes to Myanmar, he goes to Ireland, he goes all over the place, he raises that money. He's not getting frequent flyer points on underground money. He goes and finds that money someplace else because we want to release as much as it can go, as much as that can go to the poor and to the lost. Guys, if we stopped giving money, if we just stopped it, if we shut it down, we said, man, we just want to spend like traditional religious organizations, traditional churches spent money, man, we could do so many things. We could pay our staff properly. We could build a kids area that looks like Disney World. Guys, and more people would come. They would come and it would be comfortable and things would smell better in the hub. It would just smell like money. It takes money to make things smell good, you know? It would smell better. Man, we would fix the leaky roof. But our dreams are delayed. These dreams are delayed, guys, because we give the money to the poor and to the lost. Like to the point where it hurts. It's an actual sacrifice to do so. Because I think we've done a lot of innovation with microchurches and releasing people and dream factories and calling days. And we got all kinds of stuff that's just like, we go around the United States and everybody's like, I haven't seen anything like this. This is so different. This is unique. You know, I mean, some of the leading evangelical leaders are like, we haven't seen anything like this, not in this comprehensive form. It's entirely unique as far as we know in North America. And with all that innovation, with all these ideas and stuff that we're doing, I think one of the most prophetic things we offer to North America is our budget. I think it's prophetic. I think it's beautiful. Guys, if you're underground, I hope you feel a sense of pride. I hope you feel like it pleases God. I know it's just line items. I know it's just like numbers. I hope it is a spreadsheet at some point, which looks very boring and very non-mission-like. But guys, I think it's prophetic. I think it's something that says to the world, man, we delay our dreams for the poor and the lost. And we give, and we're generous, and we're radical in this way. I think it's prophetic because we give to those we owe and we give to those who go, guys, and I think you should do the same. I think you should do the same. If we're going to take this passage seriously, if we're going to take Paul as a model, and I think as missionaries we probably should, we should look at Paul and say, okay, he probably did a few things right. Maybe we should imitate him in a few ways. Then we, you and I, in our own personal budgets, should imitate him. I think our lives should be inconvenienced and our plans disrupted and our dreams delayed. because we're generous on the behalf of the poor and the lost. And I think that's what Paul models for us in Romans. But there are a few issues I see contemporary, even among our own community. A few big issues I see. Our dreams are delayed. Our plans are put on hold, but because of debt, not generosity. Because of consumerism and not giving. I think our dreams are delayed because we think our plans and our vacations are more important than the poor of Jerusalem or the mission to Spain. We don't have room in our lives for divine detours. The demands of the poor never interrupt our plans because we believe it's our money. We think it's our dream. And so I have a few practical steps for us to just kind of walk us through that. Maybe if we could kind of together as a community commit to walk together, kind of follow the footsteps of Paul, maybe we could see Spain reached and the poor of Jerusalem cared for. So I have a few kind of practical steps. I'm going to do my best Dave Ramsey impersonation. Maybe, I don't know. I don't have the southern accent, but I definitely have the haircut. So, I think the first thing that we have to do, if we're going to give to those we owe and those that go, is we have to transfer ownership to King Jesus. We think our cars and our houses and our computers belong to us, but they don't. They don't. None of it belongs to us. We have to transfer this idea that it's my house or it's my car. We have to sign over that deed and say, this belongs to Jesus. He's king. He's not just king of my soul, which he is. Don't get me wrong. Spiritually, he paid for you. By his blood, on the work of the cross, verified through the resurrection from the dead, you belong to him. You don't belong to yourself anymore. That means everything you have is now his. Transfer ownership to Jesus. Your debt, your income, not just 10%, the whole thing. He bought you from sin and death. You belong to Jesus now. It's his house. It's his car. So therefore, you should live with that house, with that car, the way that he wants you to live. You should use it the way that he would use it. This reminds me of that scene in Les Mis, the Liam Neeson kind of movie, not the sing-along movie, though Anne Hathaway was brilliant in that. But a few years back, the guy from Taken was Jean Valjean. And there's that scene where, kind of, he's a convict. He gets out of jail and he's on the streets, and this priest takes him into the home, and the priest treats him with food and bread and basically just builds him up and loves this guy. And Jean Valjean repays the kindness by stealing the silver. And you see there's this scene where actually the priest confronts him, and Jean Valjean hits the priest with a candlestick, a silver candlestick, and then runs out. Of course, he's caught by the cops, and this is he could be executed for this. He's definitely going back to prison for life. He's a criminal. There's nothing he can do. He is powerless in this situation. And the constables drag him before the priest, and they say, "This man says that you gave him this silver." And the priest says, "I did. I did give him the silver." Jean Valjean, why did you not take the silverware as well? Go get the silverware. And so everybody kind of leaves, and the priest steps up to Jean Valjean and he says, "I have just bought your life. You do not belong to yourself anymore. You do not belong to your old ways. Live differently now." And Jean Valjean, of course, goes on in Les Mis, and he lives a life that is saintly, a life of giving, a life of generosity, a life caring for the poor and the outcasts. That's his life. His life was no longer his own. He was not free to just do whatever he wanted anymore. He should do what God wants him to do. In the same way, we have been purchased. Our lives are not our own. Our property is not our own. God, how do you want me to use my truck? I have to use it the way you want me to use it. Guys, I think we should change how we think and talk and raise our kids about this stuff. I think these are like little altar moments. Every time you get like a raise or a tax return or a new car or a bike or a computer, we have to say, Jesus, this is your Mac computer. How do you want me to use it? God, this is your car. How do you want me to use it? Jesus, this is your degree. How do you want me to use it? This is your job. How do you want me to use it? These are like little altar moments over and over again for the rest of our lives because we do not belong to ourselves. Guys, and I think we should talk about it with our kids. When my kids were very young, we used to say, they would grab their toy. This is my toy. I say, baby, that's actually not your toy. Do you know whose toy this belongs to? And they'd be like, no, I thought it was mine. I thought it's my Lego. I said, no, this toy actually belongs to Jesus. But he lets you use it. Isn't that cool of him? So baby, whose truck is that out there? Because sometimes people borrow my truck, especially back in the day, and they bring it back with trash in it or additional scratches or dents or something like that. And the kids would like notice this. They're like, Daddy, why do you let these people borrow your truck all the time? You know, they want to fill up the gas tank or something like that. You know, like they give it back to me empty or something. And it doesn't happen all the time, but every once in a while they would come back. And my kids would notice. They're human beings, and so they observational. I think they're kind of bright, you know. And so they're like, why'd they do that? Why do you keep on letting them? I say, baby, this is because it's not my truck. The truck doesn't belong to me. I have to use it the way Jesus wants me to use it. And I think he gave it to me for these people. So they ask for it, I give it to them. And yeah, I think Jesus gives me stuff all the time and I ding it up. And I kind of leave trash in it. And I kind of mess it up. It's the same thing. I have to use, baby, whose house does this belong to? Is it my house? No, this house belongs to Jesus. I have to use this house the way he wants me to use it. Guys, I think those subtle changes in our language helps us change or transfer ownership to King Jesus. The second practical kind of step is I think we should live simply so that we could give radically. Guys, I am like hot on this. I have 10 chickens now. I am off the egg grid. I'm off the egg grid. So I could give more radically, guys. I think we should reduce our consumerism. I mean, the egg thing, whatever, you don't have to go get chickens. You know, let's not be legalistic about it. But I do think that we should not get the newest phones, you know, so that you could give more. I don't think every time your phone is slow and scratched up and dinged up and you pull it out and everybody has a nice, cool, nice new phone and it's shiny and yours is kind of crappy or maybe it's even a flip phone. I mean, God forbid that you get a flip phone. Right? I want you to think of Spain. I want you to think of the borders of the kingdom that are being advanced because your phone is crap. Guys, I think you should stop eating out all the time. I think we should reduce our consumerism. Take your lunch to work and think of the poor who are being fed because now you give more money away because, yeah, you took your lunch. Yeah, it's not as good as that other thing your coworker's bringing in. And yeah, I'd really like to have some of that. But I'm reducing it, not just to reduce it, not just to be simple, not just to make Jeremy happy. I mean, please, I'm not there at your work. I don't know what you're eating. But for the sake of the poor, those that we owe, we should reduce our consumption. Not just so you can save more money and spend it somewhere else on yourself, but that you can give it and be generous and have your plans make a detour. Man, I'd love to save up for a new kitchen, but I guess I could just give some more money away. And it might take me 5, 6, 10. It took me 10 years to save up money to do my kitchen. My kitchen was literally falling apart. Cabinets were falling off the wall. But it was my joy to save up that money, to spend that amount of time saving up money to redo my kitchen. I had a kitchen. The drain worked. The oven worked. The stove worked. It was disgusting. It was falling apart. It was a little embarrassing, to be honest. I had lots and lots of people come over, and I was like, oh, don't look at the kitchen. And it was my joy. It was my joy to reduce my consumption so that I could give more. Guys, there's 1,000 things. I'm not saying that you need to do that thing. If you need to redo your kitchen. I don't care. I'm just saying, let's be relentless about reducing our consumerism so that we can be generous. And let's have it impact our plans. Yeah, I'd like that new car, but you know what? It might take me 2 more years to save up for that car. because I'm being generous. It's impacting my plans. Does that make sense? So reducing our consumerism. And ask David Lennon what he does. I think he's beautiful, beautiful man. Just bear hug him, just cuddle up with him. I think I might have mentioned this already, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but he doesn't buy new cars. In fact, he bought a really, really crappy car. He spent too much money for it because the person that was selling it was going overseas. And so he's like, well, instead of like just giving you a bunch of cash, I'll buy your car, your crap car. And guys, it is a piece of junk. Like, it is literally like a piece of junk. And it's garbage. He could afford a different car. He could afford a much more expensive car. He could afford very nice cars. The dude makes some money. But instead of spending money on a car, he gives it away. He takes the money he would have spent on a car, a vehicle. He does save a little bit more for the repairs because he has to repair it quite often. I think currently it's broken, actually. He does have to repair it quite often, but he saves whatever after that. He gives that away. Guys, it's awesome. He would never tell you that. I have to kind of brag on him for that. He would never say that. He would never brag about it. Guys, I think that's the spirit of it. Could we reduce our consumption? Could we just get creative with it? And then also, could we eradicate our debt? Debt is another form of consumption. It's just consumption delayed, right? So we aggressively destroy our debt so that you're free to give and go. Debt just, man, there's so many college students. You come out of college and it's just like, yeah, I'd love to like listen to Jesus and do whatever he wants me to do, but the government and this bank right now is telling me I have to go get a job and I have to pay back this $40,000 loan. Guys, we have to eradicate that debt so that we could be free. Does that make sense? So it's not just like so we could not have debt or we could brag about it to our friends. It's so we could be free to listen to Jesus. If Jesus wants me to go to Thailand, I want to be free to go to Thailand. If he wants me to like move over here, I want to be free to move over here. I want to be free of debt. So we would have to aggressively destroy our debt as a community. The third thing, practical thing, is I think you should, this is definitely a Dave Ramseyism, you should tell your money where to go. Your money is going to leave you at some point. Like no matter what you do, it's going to leave. And you need to tell it where to go. God has given you something. He's given you authority over it. And you should exercise that authority. Don't just be like, oh, I don't know where my money goes. You should tell your money where to go. This is called a budget. If you don't have a budget, your money is still going to leave you. It's still going to go away from you. You have to exercise that authority. You have to ask Jesus, Jesus, where do you want me to spend your money? You have to tell it where to go. Should it go over here? Should I save up for this? Should I go for a car? What should I do? I recommend an envelope system. For me, Jessica and I, we got into some pretty serious debt at one point in our lives. And it's because we didn't really have a budget. We kind of had like a general idea and we thought we were doing okay, but the credit cards started adding up, right? And so what we found out, it was we ate our money. This is essentially what we did. We ate our money. We spent it on groceries and eating out. And we didn't have any other money, so like if something broke, we had to swipe it on the credit card. This is what we did. So we started doing an envelope system. So right now, we pull out money, we pull out cash once a month for groceries. And that's all we spend on groceries. And once that money's gone, it's just like you have to get creative cooking. You're like, okay, you're just standing in the pantry going, all right, how can I mix these leftover things to make a meal? But guess what? The back of the pantry actually gets accessed, right? I don't know if you've ever been in a home where it's like, there's stuff in the back of the pantry that's like years old. Like no one's ever gone back there. It's like a wasteland in the back. There's cobwebs back there. But guess what? If you go in an envelope system, you're going to get to the back. Trust me. You'll get to the back. It'll be fine. It'll be great. You'll eat. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. And the eating out thing, man, it's great because we have to actually like look and say, man, I only have this much money per month, date nights, whatever. Let's go out. Let's we could spend it all in one sitting. Or we could spread it out over like Subway sandwiches. Date night at Moe's type of thing. So romantic. we bring our own electric candle. I set it at the table like, oh, so romantic. Eat our little Moe's. Guys, this stuff, it's just practical stuff, man. But man, you need an emergency fund. You ask Jesus where he wants to spend his money. But emergencies are coming to your household right now. They're just not there yet. They're coming. Your tires are going to blow out. You're going to get a leak in that roof. Like, stuff's going to happen. This past couple weeks, I've had 2 AC units give out on me. My ceilings have literally collapsed. My back door in my house fell off the house. I have a crappy house. It literally fell off of the house. Both of my vehicles are currently broken. And I'm 100% fine. I'm not going to have to go in debt because I had money for emergencies. Right? I think Jesus wants me to have not $20,000 of emergency money. That's a Dave Ramsey advice. I don't agree with his advice at that point. He's like, yeah, 6 months of wages. I was like, 6 months? No, Dave Ramsey, that's rich people advice. Underground advice is just have some emergency fund so you don't go into debt when your house falls apart. Okay, so that's it. I'll get off of that. And the last little bit of that practical advice of telling your money where to go is to give, to be generous, guys, to actually give your money away, to give to the poor and to missional work. Guys, I think it should be fun for us. I think we should sit down with our budgets and we could be like, I get to give money to the poor and to the lost, and it's fun to do. It's fun to reduce. It's fun to get that deal from Verizon so I could give an additional $20 away to the poor. I owe them. And I want to give to them. It should fill us with joy. We should be excited to do it. Not legalism, not where it's like, well, Jeremy said I have to give money. I have to go get some chickens now. I'm only allowed to eat a Moe's burrito. No more steaks. Or whatever. No, that's the devil, legalism. I'm not talking about it. I'm just saying, guys, let these general principles, let the heart of giving to the poor and to the lost just fill us with joy. We sit down and we say, man, I want to make a budget. Jesus, where do you want me to give? Where do you want me to give? Not so I'm a better Christian, not so God loves me better. That's not, the work of the cross is secure. You're a child of the Most High God. His blood is efficient and effective for saving you, whether you give money or not. So let's not go there. I'm just saying there's a joy. There's a joy. And if Paul models it, then maybe we should imitate him. Maybe we should follow in his footsteps. For the sake of the lost and the poor, I think we should be generous. And I think we should make disciples that are generous. I think we should teach them to obey all these passages. This passage in Romans, the previous passage on justification by faith, love your enemy, forgive people, the identity passages that we love so much in our generation. You're a child of God. You're filled with the Spirit. He'll never abandon you. I think we should teach disciples to obey all of these passages and the passages about money and giving and delaying our dreams for the poor and the lost. I think we should make disciples that obey all of these things. And I know some of you do give, and I just want to encourage you to continue to mature in that. Just because you read the Bible once doesn't mean that you know the Bible, right? I mean, who read the Bible once and knows it completely? Like, yeah, you got it. No, you don't. I'll just help you with that. Don't raise your hand. Just because you pray a little bit doesn't mean you can't grow in prayer, right? Just because you give doesn't mean there isn't more to learn. We need to mature in our generosity. I want to invite up the worship team. Ezra is my youngest. Actually, Ezra and Isaiah, both my boys. They got dreams. They have been saving up for the Lego Ewok Village. Can we show the Lego Ewok Village, please? This is a $150 Lego set. It has figurines in it. There's Ewoks. There's little fighters. They love Star Wars and they love Legos, and they're just like, this is happening. And they've been saving up money, like piling up cash. And because I'm like, I'm not buying that. There's no way. Like, the door literally fell off our house. I am not buying Legos. Get your own Legos. So okay. So they've been cutting grass. They've been doing lawn work. They've been saving up money. All the birthday money, they're just squirreling it away. They're like, I got dreams. I got dreams. The Ewoks are coming home with me, you know? So this is like Ezra's the youngest, and he's saving up for the Ewok village. And just recently we did a budget 101 with him. We got Monopoly money out, and we said, baby, you might want to do an envelope system and kind of divide it up. But it's up to you. And I'm very much, I understand that it can be persuasive and possibly dominant. So I'm cautious when it comes to my children, teaching them. I'm like, babies, you have to make this decision. Like, I'm giving you my advice. I'm strongly advising it, but you have to make the choice whether or not you do this thing. I'm going to tell you this envelope system. You probably should give some money. You probably should save some money. You probably should, whatever, do your little Ewok village envelope or something like that. But you don't have to. It's your choice. And so I very much put that on my children because I don't want them to feel manipulated, to be honest. We do that with Bible study. We do that with coming to Crucible kind of stuff and home church. So we kind of do the envelope thing with him. We just kind of explain budgeting 101 to him, and he's like, okay. And then he goes upstairs, and he's kind of dealing with it. A couple days ago, this guy in our neighborhood, first time I'd ever seen him, but as often happens in our neighborhood, kind of just walks up. I'm busy doing something, fixing the house, which is currently falling apart, and the guy walks up, and he wants to talk, and which is code for he wants to ask me for money. But he's embarrassed. He doesn't want to ask me for money outright, so he wants to talk to me a little bit, and I'm glad to just treat him like a human being, right? And just say, man, like, let's talk for a little bit, and let's have this discussion. And I know he's trying to get the courage to say, and he's embarrassed, and he's just like, man, do you have any money, type of thing. And of course, I know he's kind of leading up to this, and I'm like, man, it's fine. Like, I understand what you're asking. I actually don't have any cash on me right now. It's the end of the month. We haven't got our next envelope yet for the month. I don't have any cash. I do have some food products. Do you want that? He's like, yes. Some dry canned goods and stuff like that. I was like, I have that. What I have, I will share with you. But I don't have any cash. So I go inside, get some food and stuff like that. And while in there, I was like, hey, Ezra, there's this guy out here. He wants some money. It's an opportunity for you to pray and ask Jesus, does he want you to give to this guy? Does Jesus want you to give? Not like Ezra, I'm not asking you to give to this guy. I'm asking you, would you ask Jesus if he wants you to give to this man? And so I just kind of left it at that. I gathered up food, and Ezra just comes down, and he just like dumps a wad of money in my hand. And he just goes off. He's like, kind of goes back to whatever he was doing, just smiling, happy, and stuff like that. Now I gave that dude that money. I said, man, bro, I didn't have any cash for you, but I want you to know that my son thought Jesus wants you to have this. Jesus wants you to have this cash. And of course, he was like, I can't take it from your kid. Like, that's wrong. That's wrong. I was like, no, you're not taking it from my kid. Jesus. I said, we're followers of Jesus here. And he thinks Jesus said, give this money. So it's not really up to you and me anymore. You need to take this money. He's king. Got to do what he says, man. The Ewok dream took a delay that day. The Ewok village dream took a delay because of generosity. And Ezra was happy and content. And he took his first steps into imitating Paul. One small step towards giving to those we owe and those that go. And it's just small, and he'll have a lifetime of maturing in this. And he'll get a lot of it wrong, but just one small step. Guys, you are free human beings here. God has given you money and property to steward. And I just want you to know, at the Underground, we've constructed a budget, a giving system that I think is intelligent, robust, thoughtful, and inspirational. We have a budget that gives to those we owe and those that go, to the lost and to the poor. If you're newer here, the way that we encourage giving is through a pledge system. We invite people to make a pledge, say, I think Jesus wants to me to give this money annually or monthly. And then you keep up with it. We don't tell you what you should give, what percentage you should give. We don't do any of that stuff. In fact, Brian doesn't even know the specific amounts of people giving, so that there's no temptation for him to treat somebody differently based on gift size. But I just want you to know, if you're newer, or if you didn't make a pledge in January, which is usually when we do the pledges, I want to imitate Paul here. And I want to ask you to give. I want you to give radically. To be generous in such a way that your dreams are delayed, not destroyed. You're going to get the Ewok village, don't worry. You can have the vacation. You'll get the kitchen. But it's just submitted to God's broader work. Do you see how that makes sense? It's just not about your plans or your ideas or your dreams. You submit it to God. And this is a practical way. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where my prayer life actually comes out in real life. So when I say, man, I think Jesus wants me to give this. If that's you, we're going to be opening up the pledge site again for this next week. I want to invite you to go on there today or sometime this week and make a pledge to give according to what Jesus wants you to give. If you already made a pledge in January, I want you to look at your budget again. I want you to follow Paul's lead. Is your generosity delaying your dreams? And what adjustments could you make so that our entire movement gives to those that we owe and to those that go? And just so you believe it or not, I don't care if you actually give to the underground. I don't get paid to get you to give money. That's not how we... So if you're having tingly feelings from previous church experiences, or that it's just religion is all about money, I do not care if you give here. I care if you obey the Bible. I care that you imitate Paul. That's what I care about. I raise the majority of my budget. I don't get paid more if we give more. But I think you should pledge. I think you should pledge somewhere to somebody because the Bible says so. That's what I think. That's my challenge to you today. I invite you today to submit your dreams and finances to God's larger work in the city and the world. And I think in all of this, we follow Jesus. Because this is what Paul says in Corinthians. For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor, so that through his poverty we might become rich. Our generosity follows his first example. Because on the night that he was betrayed, Jesus, he took the bread. When he had given thanks, he broke it, saying, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." He took the cup, said, "This is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me." When you take his body and you take his blood, you declare the death of our Lord Jesus, his example of generosity. We declare it until his return. Guys, I invite you as you come up, whenever you feel ready for communion, when you come up, I invite you to have an altar moment to transfer your ownership and possession to Jesus. It's his house, it's his car. Ask him how he wants to use it. I want you to ask Jesus, what changes should I make in my expenditures so that I can be more generous to the lost and the poor? And ask Jesus if you should make a pledge, a promise to give to the underground or not. I don't care. Ask Jesus, God, should I make a pledge, a promise to give to the poor in Jerusalem and to the lost in Spain? Guys, when you're ready, the body and blood of Jesus given for you.